Compton with James Compton Customs. Today I'm going to do a little video for you guys about manual cam chain tensioners. It applies to pretty much any motor, but we're going to be doing it on a ZRX 1200 today. I've been selling a lot of these lately and been getting a lot of questions, so I thought it would be a good idea just to post up a little video that explains why we run them and how to install them and set the tension on them. So first off, the reason we run these is to control our cam timing basically more accurately. We can set these to a certain length and have a consistent amount of cam chain tension. So with a stock tensioner, they're a little looser, so the chain has a little more slop in it, and the cams can actually move around, especially on deceleration. And when you build a race motor, it's critical that you have your cam timing real close to where you set it, because of your piston and valve clearance. In a race motor, it gets sometimes extremely tight, so you can't afford to have your cams moving around, or you'll get piston to valve contact and quite possibly a catastrophic engine failure. So today we're going to put one of these in. This is the RX motor. This is a donor engine that I've already removed the valve cover from, and I've already removed the signal generator cover from. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to remove is this upper cam chain guide. We're going to get that out of the way. So now that we've got the upper cam chain guide off, you can feel in that there's a pretty fair amount of cam chain free play or slop. As you rotate the motor, you'll feel it tighten up, and what you're feeling is the pressure from the valve springs pushing on the cam lobes. And when that happens, the chain gets considerably tighter. So as you roll the motor over, you'll feel it go relaxed. And if you can look at this, that's quite a bit of free play, a little more than I like to run, especially on a race motor with tight piston to valve clearance. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to turn the motor over until we get to top dead center. I like to put it at top dead center on cylinders 1 and 4. So you just line up the T with the hash mark on the cases, and you're at top dead center. At this point, you can go ahead and pull your cam chain tensioner out. At top dead center, the cams have valve spring pressure on them in such a manner that they're not going to try to spin and jump time. Now, this one came out and left the old gasket intact there. You could try to reuse that. I can almost guarantee you it's going to leak though, so you're going to want to remove that old gasket, and be careful when you're removing it not to, because you're going to have to scrape that surface. Try not to damage the aluminum surface at all when you do that. I a lot of times won't use another paper gasket. I'll just put a little bit of Yama Bond or some kind of high temp RTV on there very lightly around that surface, and let it dry for 5 to 10 minutes before I install the new tensioner, and that works fine and will not leak. So before you install this cam chain tensioner, you're going to want to back the center plunger out, so when you install it, it can be fully seated in the motor. So now that we've got that in, you can see this is free, and we're just going to run it in until we feel it contact the bow. Right there, it's in contact. At this point, you could go ahead and roll your motor over and see where it's tensioned at. It doesn't take a lot of tension. Right there, we're already back about where the stock tensioner had it. We're going to go just slightly tighter than that. I'm going to put a quarter turn on this, roll it around. And right there, that's about 1/4 of an inch deflection top to bottom. 1/4 inch is kind of a minimum. 3/8 is a maximum probably. After that, you're going to start getting some excessive cam chain noise on deceleration in the cam chain tunnel, which brings up another good point. Um, a good indicator that your cam chain is loose, whether you're running a stock tensioner or a manual cam chain tensioner, when you're warming your bike up and you're just blipping the throttle and the RPM is, just bouncing up and down, on deceleration, if your cam chain's loose, you will hear a rattling kind of noise from your cam chain tunnel. And that's a good indicator you need to address something with your cam chain and cam chain tensioner. With a manual tensioner, periodically you do have to reset the tension on them, because as the bows wear, the chains don't really stretch, but things wear in and loosen up. So you definitely want to keep an eye on it, but it's not something you have to do a whole lot. Probably every time you do a valve adjustment, just check it. But if you do hear something that doesn't sound right, you definitely want to address that at that time. But anyway, so now I'm pretty happy with where the cam chain tension is set. At this point, we can go ahead and lock this jam nut down. The other thing we want to make sure of is that when we lock the jam nut down, this plunger doesn't walk in as we're locking that down. So what I like to do is put a mark on there so it's clocked. And the jam nut is a 15 millimeter, and this is a 6 millimeter, although I'm using a 1/4 inch wrench because it was just handy in there. I'm just going to hold this center plunger so it can't walk in, and I'm going to tighten up this jam nut on the manual tensioner, and that feels like it's pretty tight. So, and that's it. So you should be good to go at that point. What I like to do before I button everything up is I'll turn the motor over a few more times, get it in that slacked position. You can feel it as you're cranking the motor over. It'll just almost walk itself forward when you get to a certain point, and that's where it's slacked. When you run it up and put tension on it, you notice that it gets a lot tighter, and that's normal. That's what you want to see. So anyway, at this point, we can go ahead and put our upper valve guide back in. And on this particular model, they all seem to have just a little bit of tension. If you look, there's maybe a 1/16 of an inch that it's pulling down. When I'm building a race motor, if I find this situation, when I set my upper bow on and I have a gap right there, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come in here and put a small washer under each, the same thickness, to where the upper guide is contacting the cam chain, but it's not putting any force downward on it. It changes the cam chain tension for one. It slightly reduces the distance between the pins, between the two camshafts, which alters your cam timing slightly. It can wear this bow out faster, and it also creates parasitic loss because it's creating, it's got some pressure against the cam chain. Okay, so that's pretty much it. We've got the new manual cam chain tensioner in. The tension is set. I just want to go back really quick and stress the importance of putting that in and making sure you have that free play. If you don't have adequate free play, at least a little bit, if they're a little tight, you might wear out a bow prematurely. If you get them really tight, you can break the cam chain. I've seen this happen in 30 years. I've seen it happen twice. Guys have gone in and really wrenched down on this and over tightened their cam chain. As soon as they started the motor, cam chain broke, stuffed all their valves into their pistons, and they lost a considerable amount of money in an investment, and not to mention whatever event or races they missed or as a result of it. So anyway, I can't stress that enough. It's really important that you don't over tighten this, but it is a great upgrade, especially on a race motor. The real issue with the stock tensioners, the way they're designed, is they have a spring-loaded plunger with a ratcheting locking mechanism. When you're under extreme conditions, especially like on a road race course and you're downshifting heavily at high RPM, you can actually get that thing, it can back up on you. The locking mechanism can fail basically, and it can give you variable cam timing, and you run the risk of piston to valve contact, so damage to your top end and even possibly a catastrophic engine failure. So that's why we run this more than anything. It's just good insurance for not a lot of money, and it looks good. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope it was informative and you learned something about manual cam chain tensioners. Keep the questions coming. We'll keep building cool parts and we'll keep making more videos. Thanks for watching and stay tuned.